Hello, and welcome everybody back to the wonderful Unily Podcast. It's good to be back. It feels like it's been a little while, doesn't it, gang?
It has been a while. I've missed you, Matt.
I know. It's been a hot second. Better busy than bored, as I always say. But we finally found some time to get together and do another episode, which I'm really looking forward to, on a topic which I'm sure is hot on the lips of all of our listeners. Before we jump into that, let's just catch up. Kaz, what's been going on in your world? How are you doing?
Good. It's been, as you say, crazy. Been traveling a lot, conferences, masterclasses, but it's so interesting being side by side with all the internal communicators, employee experience professionals, kind of hearing what challenges they have day to day, and no doubt AI is the one that seems to come up a lot lately. So it's good that we're discussing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I have seen through the amazing social media posts that you've been on a bit of a whirlwind tour, speaking at conferences and getting together with the internal communications leaders around the world. I really like the video where you did retention versus recruitment, and you got people going left and right. That was really good.
People got quite heated about it as well. We had a bit of a debate in the room, and some people saying it's actually quite weird when you think about it. If you look at the number of people dedicated to recruitment versus the number of people dedicated to retention and kind of these internal communicators, just not the same resource, but people, they're making their waves. You saw the votes, so
it was good. It was good. What starts out as a small LinkedIn meme quickly becomes a topic of massive debate and contention. I love it. Ashton, what about you? What have you been up to? Well, I should know this. We work together all the time. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been great. Much like Kaz, I have also been traveling around quite a bit for masterclasses. We were in Amsterdam and Paris, and London we did one as well. And it's been busy. It's been a busy summer so far, but we've been really enjoying it. We've actually been running a little bit of an AI campaign as well within product marketing. So this stuff is
reading some of that content.
Yeah.
Oh, fabs. Feedback welcome.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And of course, really exciting news for all of us, but obviously paying the price for this, but Gartner announced a magic quadrant for our industry. So I know that's taken up a lot of your time as well, Ashlyn. But really exciting developments for the intranet market generally. So looking forward to seeing that research come out soon. But enough of that. You're making me jealous with all your traveling, all you international jet setters. Let's talk a little bit about the topic we're really digging into today. It is AI, of course. How could it not be? Ever since ChatGPT burst onto the scene November 2022, it really seems to be the only thing people want to talk about. So we thought now is the perfect time to jump into it. But the conversation doesn't stop today. A cheeky little plug for those of you checking out the Unily Podcast today. If you want to see more great topics and debates about how AI is impacting the world of employee experience, the Unite 23 Employee Experience Conference is less than 2 months away. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kaz.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's
less
scary
than
though.
I know, I'm freaking out
days.
already. Yeah. When you start to realise it's right on the horizon. But there's an AI panel discussion. So if when we do just the tip of the iceberg today, if there's more you want to find out, that is an incredible conference, which won't all be about AI, you'll be pleased to hear, but there will be an AI panel discussion, which is totally worth signing up for. But yes, Unite 23 continuing the AI discussion. But let's really get into it in earnest. I mean, AI, everyone's talking about it. Where did the hype come from?
Since the dawn, I guess, of ChatGPT, it feels like unless you've been living in a cave somewhere, you'll know exactly how AI is shaping really the world around us. And I suppose there's a bit of a divisive debate at the minute in general about, I guess, what AI means for the future of humanity, but maybe we'll not get quite as existential today. I think really in terms of content creation and communication, it really it holds the power to revolutionize how enterprises create, curate and manage content, and it's really cutting edge, I guess, technology and taking advantage of that. But it's such a new topic as well that I think now is the moment to really understand the full potential of it.
That's interesting, right? So Kaz, now that I'm coming over to you, well, you've obviously heard Ashton's take now, so you're responding as well in kind. But I mean, a good question. Do you agree? ChatGPT, is that the cornerstone of the AI hype train?
It is the cornerstone of the hype train, but like AI has been around. I mean, we've used it in the Unily product for years now, and so but really, I heard an article that kind of termed it like the fourth industrial revolution, because like ChatGPT was the first thing that really put it in consumers' hands, and it seemed like everybody everywhere was like, right, I need to use ChatGPT. I don't know what for, but for something, and so like. It's propped up all these questions, and now everyone's been able to plug into it and see the power of it. It's bringing up the right sorts of questions, which is where does it add value, especially in a time where people are trying to do more with less. People are asking the right questions. What should we be using it for? And people are, testing with it, playing with it. And so ChatGPT for sure is the kind of cultural revolution that brought it to the forefront. But in reality, as consumers, we've been consuming parts of. Anyone that watches Netflix has been subject to their AI algorithms. I read a stat actually.
AI-ified.
Yes. I read a stat that 80% of all the content consumed on Netflix is through algorithmic recommendations. Yep. So like it shows the power of it in terms of how the big players have been using it, but now it's in everyone's hands. We need to be asking ourselves the same questions, really. So, like, let's remind me later in case I forget, because I feel like this is the kind of conversation where we're going to spiral off in many different directions. Yes.
But, I mean, that's a really important point right there, is that actually some of the best AI is the AI you don't even realize is being used. Probably people didn't think about that in the context of the world's leading streaming service, or is Netflix even the world's leading streaming service anymore? I mean, I've recently signed up for Apple TV and it's amazing.
Those guys are overtaking.
That is not the topic for today's conversation, but it does show you that sometimes the AI stuff under the surface is like some of the most impactful stuff. But okay, so I think we kind of in agreement then that a lot of the hype comes from ChatGPT coming out and getting into consumer hands and being a lot less surface level and more everyone proactively engaging with AI. So if that's the case, first question, have you both used ChatGPT?
I have, yeah. And I feel like, especially for content creation, the thing about ChatGPT is it isn't perfect. But what it can do is really dissolve the blank page. It can really help you overcome writer's block by getting down some content quickly, maybe getting a structure of something on a page. And then from there, as the human beings, we come along and we're able to shape something from that. But it can give you a kernel really of an idea that you can then run with. So yeah, I've used it a few times in terms of if I was like writing an article on a particular topic, I've used that a couple of times. It doesn't get everything right, I would say. It definitely requires a healthy dose of critical thinking, but it's super useful.
Okay, cool. What about you, Kaz, as well? Interested.
I have as well. Like I actually before this podcast, I looked back because it kind of archives your chat history. I remember just like testing of certain things. I'm looking at how I used to play with it, and I was just really terrible with the prompts and things like that. And over time, I've kind of developed this relationship with it where it's like, now I know how to use you, or at least I'm getting better. But it's kind of like toying with it, playing with it. Let's see how it does with this. I actually have a bit of a confession, which is that the core structure for this podcast, I did actually. He was like,
oh,
hey.
Oh my God, I feel betrayed. We need a disclaimer on this podcast.
But it did. But do you know what? As you say, it wasn't perfect, and ultimately, you know, we know each other. I know how Matt plays with ideas. I know how Ashlyn plays with ideas. I know what will resonate a bit more with our audience, and so it provided a good foundation and planted the right seeds to help me develop something better.
That is real Matrix vibes, Kaz. Yeah. That is like enter the Unily Matrix. That's created structure for a podcast about AI. Using AI.
Wow. Yeah. So I know, like layers upon layers.
We're not deep fakes, so we are real people discussing this. Or are we?
Okay, cool. Well, like, I mean, so at least then we all have a good understanding of where some of that hype comes from, because I have to say, you know, it is very impressive. ChatGPT is an isolated AI service. It is very impressive. But there are lots of other types of AI that have existed for a while, and there's other new AI services which are emerging, which are also very, very cool. So, like, I guess that's why we're here now, right? You know, let's establish credentials. None of us are AI experts, and that is not where we're coming at this topic from in today's podcast. What we want to talk about is, in the world of digital employee experience, trying to increase alignment and engagement of employees through digital content, how do these new emerging AI technologies make it easier for us, empower us to do our jobs better so we can achieve those better outcomes? So that's what we're talking about. And now let's talk about it, right? So I think that's a good kind of background to where the hype comes from. But what are the use cases? You know, we're thinking, let's talk internal comms, let's talk HR. Well, let's just start with those two. Those are huge internal audiences or internal functions, right, within the modern enterprise. What are the use cases that these two functions should be looking at to, you know, apply these new AI services to get more value for the business? Who wants to jump in with their first kind of use case? Talk to us a little bit about it, what kind of tools they can use and how it's going to make that better.
I guess for me, it's a natural fit to take the IC one, given my background in internal communications. I would say one of the key use cases for internal communications is really generative AI. So thinking about publishing assistants that are leveraging AI. If you think about spitballing ideas with your team members, you know, everybody's super busy. We've got loads of meetings in the diary all week. Now, as part of your engagement strategy, you can input certain prompts perhaps to AI or a publishing assistant, and it will help you in creating a bit of a structure for your ideas. But also, something that I was thinking about is that internal communications professionals need to be kind of generalists, don't they? You know, whether you're working in finance or media or healthcare, you need to have a certain base level of understanding of the context within which you're operating. So AI, I think, can offer that, can really, if you give it the right prompts, it will come back to you with ideas or information that can really help you generate that context much, much quicker. And so I think that increases the speed to value for internal communicators.
Okay, so generative AI to help internal comms get ideas down on paper faster and elevate the speed at which they can get high quality comms out. Question, do you treat all internal comms equally in that application of AI? All internal comms? Or do you think there are exceptions where generative AI shouldn't be used for certain internal messages?
So I think it goes back to always making sure that there is an editor angle. So always making sure that you're applying critical thinking and you're still being, you know, human-centric in your approach. And that means you should never really leave everything up to generative AI. You can create an idea or the bones of an idea, and then you flesh it out and you apply that human centricity. But I think there are obviously occasions where you'll need to do that a little more heavily, but that's where it's super important that those AI features that exist today, whether that be video transcripting or publishing assistance, it's all super editable so that you can apply that nuance and maybe tweaks in tone of voice. Because like we say, it's not perfect yet.
Okay, so I'm going to flip this one over to Kaz, and we're still on the topic of generative AI for internal communicators. Many more use cases still to dig into. But Kaz, based on what Ashton said, what do you think about executive leadership comms? Do you still think, as a leader, you could use generative AI when you need to put, let's say you're the CEO of, a 50,000 employee company, and you've got to write some kind of critical communication. Do you still think it's right to use generative AI in that scenario?
It's really interesting because I think if you'd asked me last year, I probably would have said no.
Okay.
However, really, I totally agree with what Ashton said there, in the sense that, like, the more I've used it for things that I think actually it wouldn't deliver on, or it's not going to knock this out of the park. Actually, it's just providing, for me, it's like a stepping stone, and from that point, it makes me think more about how do I bring the me and how do I bring the human element into this. So I'm not doing the base level of the foundation, because a lot of that work can be done by not all the time. As I said, I think, as Ashton said, I think there are some personal stories, sensitive things that it can't work for. But I think to provide a good foundation, it actually makes you then focus a bit more on how you're adding value to the content as an individual or as a leader, how you're putting your mark on it, rather than necessarily using all your time on some of the kind of underlying stuff that can be outsourced to AI.
Okay, cool.
Although I'm sure not everyone will agree with that.
That's good, right? We like to be divisive. But I think the key takeaway there is, of course, that the editor still has a very significant role.
For sure.
Generative AI isn't the 100% answer for internal comms. I think we secretly all know that is the truth. So that's cool. Okay. So internal communications using generative AI. Cool. What's another use case that we should be thinking about for AI in the world of employee engagement, employee experience?
I kind of set myself up a little bit early with the Netflix comment, but I think it's a bit of an unsung hero for internal communicators, because like the reality is employees are time poor and you're competing against all content everywhere, really. True. There's a internal Institute of Internal Comms study that just came out, which showed how little time employees really dedicate to reading internal communications. So anything you can do to pique the interest, find the content that's going to resonate with them, build a connection between the employee and the employer, and feel like they belong there. And so it's not a transactional thing. Those sort of algorithmic things, what's popular in your department, what got people talking in your office, like this sort of stuff we've been doing for years, but it's an unsung hero because it's one of those invisible things that's going on in the background that is really just helping employees to engage with the right content.
That is a really good one. I really like that one. And do you know what? I think the reason that one resonates with me a lot is because we're all time poor. I myself am time poor. Like we talk about internally, like the comms that come out. Did you guys see the kudos announcement about the winners of our cultural awards for the quarter? Okay, so that I was seeing that, and then I saw about us getting our sustainability accreditation. Unily gets accredited for us. Yes, right, about like our sustainability efforts, right? And I looked at those two articles and I had to pick which one I was going to read. I'm sorry, HR team. I went for the cultural one. I didn't go for the sustainability one. Is on my list of things to read.
To be fair, you did quite well in there. You did quite well. You won the leaderboard.
Yeah.
So.
You wanted to find your name on that board.
Yeah,
Let's be real, Matthew.
Secret to employee engagement is all about people serving their own interests. Make sure their name is plastered on everything. I actually didn't see myself. I didn't read it very well. I've got to go back. So that's another idea for later. AI summarizations. Was I mentioned in this story should be an AI feature. But
I like that.
Kaz's one is right. How does AI sorting through the noise, prioritization as well? That's the other thing. It's not just about relevancy. It's also about helping us to prioritize. If you have to pick between two articles, can AI predict which one you're going to enjoy reading more? That is really powerful stuff, really powerful. And actually, the thing I really like is kind of when you look at it through the lens of machine learning on a very personal level. So it's not like algorithmic recommendations just based upon global behavioral analysis, but actually there's, when you start to apply true machine learning and predictive behaviors for the individual. So it's like, okay, cool. Well, like you click on everything that I send you, but like, where do you linger longest? And, are there small markers around where your mouse tracks, for example, over content that indicates that you've got more value out of a certain piece of content? So you can take that quite far, I think, and get quite deep on it. Bless you, Ashlyn. Let's make sure in the editing you cut to Ashlyn.
You managed to mute for that, because that's quite impressive.
I muted myself.
We'll splice that sneeze shot in. So, okay, cool. That's another really good one. And again, talks to the generative AI stuff. You're feeding the prompt, so it feels very like you're interacting. And then, if you're doing the kind of recommendation stuff, it's all like below the surface, which I also really like. Okay, let's talk about another use case. And I'm saving one for later that I really like.
So I had kind of an addendum onto the one you just gave, because I think it can apply to any function, not just internal communicators. And I guess this could apply to HR as well. And I think that AI can show us better who our audience is and tailor messaging to them. So obviously the content recommendations piece is a big one, but successful communication, as we know, really truly rests on knowing your audience and speaking to them in their own language and a tone that they're gonna really resonate with. So I think those AI, especially I guess generative AI, but AI features that include personality traits, cognitive styles, tone, formality. I guess it's thinking about identity linked worldviews as well, and making sure that messaging is really tailored to your various segments of audience. So I think that can be a really beneficial use case as well.
Translation, of course, as well. Like translation as well is a big part of that segmentation.
Yes, it is. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like if you can get the audience creation piece down, like a lot of systems do smart kind of audiences, but they are, again, it's algorithmic or rule based, right? But how could you apply AI to make those audiences constantly shift and adapt and even spin themselves up? Like, hey, like you often target the global sales team with your updates on XYZ, but actually if you look at it, the business development representatives don't read this. They're looking at a different type of content more regularly. So we've created a new audience for you, which strips them out and does all of that for you. I mean, right, that's cool, right?
Yeah, I feel like you snuck in like an extra use case there, which is the...
I'm just adding extras here and there. Yeah. But no, Kaz, the other use case that you talked about is translation of content. Now, again, that's the one that is for anyone with any content on the internet, right?
Yeah, like poor like internal communicators, where marketing teams get all these big teams segmenting their audiences. As we say, they end up as generalists and trying to resonate with the exec leaders as well as the frontline workers that time poor in the factories. And they've got an office in Spain, and they really want to resonate and engage with those employees. So they've had an acquisition and they're trying to balance all this stuff. And so AI really is a great way to support them in that, whether that's to do with, as you say, like tone, format, or whether it's, as you say, translation is a big way to overcome that barrier and engaging employees that English isn't their native language or wherever you may be based.
Yeah, and the translation stuff, super powerful, because that's not just comms, right? We talk about that from a comms perspective, but that's every piece of content, every page in your entire employee experience platform being able to be consumed in any language. And again, I guess we're taking quite a balanced approach, I think, because we're talking about the drawbacks, right? We didn't proclaim ChatGPT to be like a perfect content creator. And equally, translation is not perfect through these AI tools either. But it's the same thing we said before, right? Is that actually, when you've got to do more with less, maybe you don't have manual translation resources, AI gets you to a 90% really good place with translation. If you do have some of that resource, that 90% is 90% of the translation work that the manual resource, the individual who's responsible for creating the Spanish version of that page doesn't have to do. And instead they can focus on using specific Spanish phrases, which make it sound more natural, more authentic, and kind of tweaking and amending, right? It's an accelerator.
I know we've got a lot of customers that have like managed to build processes or engage parts of their workforce that they never were able to because of the machine translation there. And so they used to either spend massive budgets on manual translation, which we all know is very expensive. And so you either make a massive cost saving there, or, you know, as you say, you get 90% of the way there and allow your local contributors to do that tweaking. It's
that powerful editing piece, isn't it? That's where then the IC people or the HR people or finance or whoever can come in and run with that 90%. And Kaz, what you mentioned earlier about IC having less tools at their disposal than the likes of HR, I think that's bang on. And I think that we should probably acknowledge the fact that they also have lower budgets usually in corporations. So I think that really time, money, resource, AI can help them save it all, because it does really cut down that time and effort and manual labor that you're of course paying for to scale your communications.
I have another use case, and this one is not come from the AI script. So there we go. This is how I'm bringing back the human element. I'm going off
rogue one.
A rogue one. But it is a good one because it's one that I've been exploring a little bit recently, and I think it has huge potential. Potentially. It also has quite significant drawbacks, I guess. But the use case is AI image generation. Now, this stuff is awesome. Awesome, right? So do you know what? I'll send this image. Maybe we can splice this image in the editing. But I just said, generate a picture of a man in a spacesuit waiting at the bus station. And the image it generated was amazing. Like, so good. Could absolutely be used on our blog. So let's hope we can convince Chris to use it.
I'm very with you with that, because it's a bit of an underdog, but actually sometimes I've tried to communicate something about how something looks or how I want it to feel, and actually I've tried it a few times, and you know what, it's like, wow, okay, that instead of me trying to like draw it or explain it, it does it pretty well.
So imagine, right, a world where you go through your employee experience platform and you know that like imagery is a big part of how engaging content is, and then you see these dusty old 90s looking icons everywhere and like these weird rubbish images that people have downloaded for free off of Google or whatever, and it's all off brand, right? But then imagine a new world where the image picker is not, you're designing a new comms article and you go to pick an image, and rather than picking from like some kind of gallery or going on Google and copying and pasting something, you are instead writing what you want the image to look like and kind of what you want it to contain, but it's already been pre-fed with the context of your brand guidelines, the kind of stylistic approach, right, that your company takes for imagery, and then it just spins up an image, right, and it just creates something new for you that has never been seen before, and you know it's on brand, and you know it's going to be eye-catching and look amazing. Imagine how much time that saves for image trawling and picking. Now, obviously, the flip side
There's the time-saving element and, the engaging part of it.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Sometimes you just can't find what you need on Getty, right? And the keyword search it, But I will throw a spanner in the works here, because I think whilst all of that is wonderful and I think really could transform engagement, there is something very, very important that I think as internal communicators and just generally as enterprises, people should remember and think about, and that is we need to accept responsibility and make a commitment that we will never misuse AI. Because if we think forward to like 5-10 years from now, I mean, even now, the potential of deep fakes or whatever, we've seen maybe presidents of countries delivering speeches that they never made, but they've been created by AI. So what we need to really commit to in IC and enterprises is that we will never do that when it comes to like the C-suite or a leadership team delivering video content or even imagery to mischaracterize some messaging in the company, because I could see that is a real risky danger zone.
As you've gone straight to the dark
Black Mirror.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say something like
someone's been on the new series.
Yeah, I was thinking I thought Ashley was going to say like, oh, you know, we just need to make sure we respect our brand identity, and you know, obviously marketers are going to want to choose certain images. No, straight to the deep fake in the CEO's face into articles and stuff. But it's a legitimate concern.
You got to think about it, and also
is,
your employees as well, because you know there's a lot of, if you even think about within Unily, we've got images of ourselves in the system. You have to make sure that employees' content is, you know, data privacy is respected, and you're never misusing that. And I think that could become, not for all enterprises, but for some who are more sugly than others, it could become a real issue in the future.
I think that's a good one.
That's why I think like discussing it in the use cases and applying it in the context of people's roles is super important, because obviously we started this conversation about ChatGPT, and it's very easy to get carried away and thinking, you know, it's just a website, right? You're just playing it like a toy, but actually like it does matter what you use it for and how you use it, which is why if you're watching this and you're an employee experience professional or internal communicator, you need to think about how it adds value to your role and to your employees, and so that's what we want to do at Unily, is kind of apply it in the right ways.
Yeah, so I mean, do you know what? Like, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about risk, you know, mitigating some of that risk. But before we do, quick fire, right? So you got a stopwatch, 20 seconds per idea. What other use cases do we have? Anybody got other use cases that they want to land with the internal comms and HR audiences listening to us today, or even EX professionals if your role is pure digital experience in the org?
So I think that IT, or well, I guess it's a mixed bag with this one, but refreshing your site content in like no time, it has never been easier than with AI. If we think about intranets, for example, not that I'm biased, but if we talk about intranet package solutions or EXPs, you now have no excuse for that content not to be relevant and fresh and the greatest and latest. And so I think that you can maximize the trust and respect that your people have in that content by keeping it refreshed using AI, and obviously getting to that 90% before you tweak it. And I think that could be a real way to drive.
So are you talking about AI reporting to tell you when you need to refresh pages, or are you talking about AI to design pages?
That too, but more I was thinking about keeping the actual content within a site page relevant, up to date, making sure that it's not, essentially unreliable. But yeah, I guess all of that, you could have AI driving that review cycle so that you know when you need to update content. But yeah, really using both of those things, there's not going to be an excuse anymore for content to be able to do it.
Okay, good one. Kaz?
The big one, which actually you probably set me up from earlier, was to do with that feedback measurement. There's two sides to that. Part of it is you're a administrator or you're an internal communicator, and you kind of want to uncover insights about your content, how it's engaging, how it's doing, how engaged your audience are. But also there's that kind of sentiment analysis-y part of it. Analysis-y is a word now, apparently. Which is like that we talk about employee listening, and I think we've had a podcast on employee listening before. A big part of listening is, of course, there's that direct feedback, but there's also being able to kind of understand the sentiment of understanding the sentiment of your workforce, the sentiment of the content you're creating, like all of that stuff, that measurement insights that allows you to do better and engage your workforce better.
Agreed. much easier to capture sentiment in a conversation where you can read facial expressions, talk about emotions, things like that. How do you capture the same in digital environments, and how can artificial intelligence interpret and help kind of unlock the insights from that as well? It's not just were people happy when they read this story. It's like why were they happy when they read that story? What's the kind of root cause of that, and how do we capture and recreate that in the future? Ashley, any other use cases on your side? I have a couple more. Okay, I'm gonna go while you think.
Yeah,
you have time to think. So, auto categorization, really simple. You know, often already like in many different systems. You know, but ultimately really connected to knowledge management at its core, but automatically categorizing content, objects, whatever it might be, in a way that people can navigate through that collection with ease going forwards. So you already see it in kind of various different ways around auto categorization of documents. But if you look at other kind of AI services, machine vision, for example, automatic categorization of images for recall and reuse, automatic categorization of video content, again, where it's able to depict the visuals and the objects within the media and therefore tag things automatically. Those are quite good because we know that, like, I mean, how many different versions do you think of say, the Unily logo exist in our intranet, have been uploaded to the intranet to use on different content so far? So many, right? So I think that is a really good one for time saving as well.
I always feel the pain of people when you go like you've got folders 4 levels deep, and it's like, oh, is this in the HR folder? Is it in the comms folder? Where would that image be saved? And like, actually, that's a big part of it.
It is. It is.
I've got one final quick one, which I feel is on the up in terms of like employee well-being, especially with the rise of kind of hybrid work, remote work, and the boundaries between kind of home and work blurring. Increasingly kind of using AI to support employees with well-being, notifications, all that sort of stuff, I think is one of those bubbling under topics which once we get to grips with how we use it will be something to look out for in the future.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. Ashton, did you think of any more?
Yes, I did indeed.
Okay. Go on then, I'll let you have it.
Conversational chatbots that are AI driven.
Okay.
So we're all used to going into, a website, whether it's like a utilities firm or maybe our bank, and we have a little chatbot pop up, and that can quickly help us navigate to what we need. It means you don't have to stay on the phone for 45 minutes, an hour when we're calling up these various brands. So why can't we apply that same thinking to internal communications, whereby your employees can quickly find answers to the things they're looking for? And I think that would take the burden off, a plethora of teams, whether that be your finance team, you're checking out what the various policies are, or HR information. You can quickly type something into a chatbot and it will come back to you with the right link or the right information. And of course, with AI now, we can choose from various different tones, various different personality traits within chatbots and really build them to suit our brand and our organization.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And that's the kind of AI, natural language processing kind of stuff as well, where rather than having to construct queries, search terms, right, a lot of chatbots are conversational interfaces, like based on searching for answers, right? But not all, but some and many. But the point there is that NLP side of things is really powerful. And that's basically what one of my final ones was going to be, was AI powered search. So you can either go through the traditional search interface, but able to kind of ask questions like, what is our maternity/paternity policy, at Unily? And it can kind of process that and find you the answer, not just the content item that then contains the answer. Chatbot's really good for that. AI-powered search, recommended search terms, suggested search terms driven by AI, things like that, you know, where it interprets the purpose, the intent, its search intent that it captures, not just the query itself. Those are really good ones. The other one I mentioned earlier, and it will make this the final one because I know we've talked a lot and I do want to get to those risks. Comment down below if you want a part 2. Anyway, this one is content summarizations. We talked earlier about this whole piece around how AI can help us with prioritization of reading. But what if AI is able to just save the time on the reading straight up, right? So I really want to know how we scored in that sustainability report and what the key takeaways are. Can AI just give me a summary which takes 30 seconds to read instead of 3 minutes? Like AI summarization of content, I think, you know, especially again, because that's really about serving the end user. It's about recognizing a pain point for all employees, time poor, and kind of doing something for them specifically, which I also really quite like. You can see,
as much as we hate to admit it, despite being time poor, also attention poor.
Oh, yes.
So true.
It's true.
Because sometimes when you see, that takes 6 minutes to read, you're like, bloody hell.
Yeah. 6 minutes of my time.
6 minutes. and so it may be like that summary actually piques your interest to then delve into it deeper, but it's better to have some engagement than none.
And if I could just add a layer of potential AI on the top of that, because I think that is a big one. What if the summary that takes 30 seconds or a minute to read is actually audio? So you could just click on a little button and AI has got a little voice. You know, we've Speechify, I think, is a big company that does this. And it's just a little voice and you can fritter away on your emails or do whatever you're doing, but you can still listen to the 30-second update. And that way you're kept in a loop. You're not taken out of your workflow. You can be, I don't know, doing the dishes on your lunch break or whatever it is, but you're still able to do that.
And accessible for people, yeah.
And accessible. It could even be like a personalized, self-generated intranet podcast where it takes the summarizations.
Oh no!
And then
What's gonna happen to us?
Yeah, I know. Challenging our own podcast now. Your intranet's going to have way more. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, do you know what? Good segue. Speaking of us being out of a job, let's talk about risks and mitigation of those risks for AI. And, you know, it seems a shame to end on a downer, but I feel like we should go to this place, okay, right? So, Ashton, you talked earlier, I think that's the first really good one, just to recap, is around us taking responsibility for how AI could be applied in more negative ways. And, you know, we have to take responsibility for good use of AI for when it comes to generating content, whether that be imagery or text, and that being a potential risk in the wrong hands. What other kind of risks do we have when we look to try and apply more AI to the world of employee experience?
So I would say the big elephant in the room is job displacement, and it's something that I would say is on many communicators' minds, whether they be in IC or not. And I don't think it's necessarily a risk to be negated when we're talking about this. So McKinsey reckons that automation will displace up to 800 million jobs by 2030. And that's not good. So obviously that forecast and that sort of research is going to cause concern amongst communicators. AI is obviously one of the front runners when it comes to automation. But like looking back to the 19th century, even factories, advancements with textile workers, have you thought about the mills that maybe replaced human workers when they were working in textile factories? The same fears were really prominent then. It was sort of like, this new technology is going to replace me, it's going to rob me of my livelihood. And oftentimes what we see is that the market adapts, and that sometimes those fears prove to be unfounded. But yeah, that is a big one. I would say like job displacement is a bit of a valid risk.
I saw a tweet on Twitter, which was basically about kind of talking to those fears, but saying basically like the person that should be most scared for their job is not from AI. It's the person that can't work with AI or can't use AI. And so I've actually seen people on LinkedIn put something into ChatGPT and it gives back some rubbish, and they post it as an example of how it can't replace. But actually, you look at the prompts that they've used, and it's like, actually, you haven't done the work. You haven't worked with it. And so, like, part of it's a mindset shift, which is knowing how to work with it to help you. And that's where the power is. So anyone looking to make those gains, there are all these threads out there about how to make, 99% of people are using ChatGPT wrong. You see all those sorts of things all the time, but cringy,
yeah.
but like actually kind of true.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, well, if it can make your job easier, then it's a tool, and you should harness a tool to lessen your own burden and increase your own efficiency, right? Like if it can help you do better in your job, you should embrace that. I think it's an opportunity. In terms of job risk, though, I mean, it's a legitimate point, and I think that, well, it's going to be really interesting, I think, over the coming, well, dare I say weeks, but realistically, more like months and years.
Today.
Yeah, like more like months and years, right? It'll be interesting to see how organizations balance the use of kind of powerful AI technologies within their enterprise against the human element. And I mean, that's also a risk, right? Isn't the risk that we go so heavily on AI? AI is so great, it can do this, it can do that, right? But then you start to lose the most human element of the organization, which is the people.
I'm sure we've all had experiences of like customer experience, which have been so automated and you don't have a connection with them. You don't feel any affiliation to that brand, and that also does apply down the cycle to employee comms as well. And so building that connection, and so it's understanding where the human element needs to be, because if it
no, so I agree with you. I agree with you fully. And we've all, whether you like to admit it or not, everyone's had a connection with somebody who works for a business like customer service rep, and you have a little joke about something or whatever, right? And it feels very like natural and helps you to connect with the brand, right? And I guess right now, at least, I can't see a world in which AI could replicate that human connection.
No, absolutely not. And I think when you're, when you're even on the phone with something like that that's automated, you sometimes really hit that barrier. Like, do you know what? I just want to talk to a human being. And I think the same thing is in comms as well. Sorry.
I was just going to say, did you see, though, that I don't know if you saw the video where Google had the AI bot book a haircut appointment?
No.
So,
I'm intrigued.
Oh God, okay. So maybe it can replace the human connection, and we're all doomed.
Oh God. Was that the conclusion?
No. It was very cool. Asked the bot to phone up a specific hair salon and book an appointment, and then it has a full conversation where it can't get the appointment at once, and so it books the next nearest time slot. And there's also one that they've done recently where they got somebody to sign up to test drive a Tesla using an AI bot as well. But then again, those are just some examples which are probably worth looking into. But I don't.
Yeah.
They're actually very as you name them, they're quite automatable examples. But actually, the more you test, especially when it comes to communications, one of the issues I've personally run into with AI is sometimes it's good to get you over like a writer's block.
Yes.
But actually, some of the creative elements, you're like, okay, well, it doesn't really get you there, and so you can see that it's AI written. So there's kind of like this creativity side where you need to like work alongside it and elevate it, which I think I said earlier. But like, you don't want it to be so AI driven that like you lose that creativity, that uniqueness.
Agreed.
100%. I think for comms people, AI can be the dream companion if you make it one. The real risk here is not that you're going to be replaced in your role by AI. The real risk is that you might be replaced by a peer who knows how to use AI to their advantage.
The final thing, and then because I know we, as always, we're running out of time. I'll say one more risk, and then I'll come to both of you and I'll ask you to give some. So you start thinking now, what advice are you going to give to listeners who are interested in applying AI to their employee experience strategy? You have a think on that advice, some parts and wisdom. The final risk that I will then share is obviously around when you're using generative materials, generative AI tools, it has to be around security. We really need to consider the fact that, as we start to put prompts and questions in, the information we put in could then be used to train the model. So my one piece of advice around that would be that I think organizations need to get really well acquainted with the common, like generative AI tools, for example, understand how they might be used in various different functions, and understand the potential risk about IP, for example, being used in the prompt that you're, if Unily is planning on releasing X feature, which does this, and this uniquely in the marketplace, how do we how do we market this to this audience, right? And, does that IP then somehow get trickle out, right? So we do need to think about what kind of information we put into these tools versus the value we get out as well. So I do think there is like an information security, intellectual property kind of risk there that needs to be considered too, which is, a final kind of thing that I think we all should be aware of. But that said, we're getting to the end. So now, advice. Everybody listening, whether you're a digital experience leader, internal comms, HR, intranet manager, whatever your job role is, if you're looking to implement AI as part of your employee experience strategy, here's the guidance from the experts. Over to you, Ashlyn and Kaz. Take it away.
Okay, so my big piece of advice is really a message of reassurance for internal communicators. I think that we should remember that AI is not going to replace the power of our own grey matter. Really what it's about is enabling you to focus on the big picture by taking out a lot of the legwork of manual labour and really that human oversight being super crucial. Any AI tooling that doesn't allow for human oversight, the editing ability, the ability to fine tune your source content and really get the tone, really get the resonance landing, I think throw it out, it's worthless. But when you add in that editable kind of human centricity layer, you've got something really powerful. So I think, just remember that you're still in the driving seat.
Nice. Good one. Kaz, advice?
I struggle to top that, but I would say don't forget the communication element of it. As we said, it's the word or term on everyone's lips at the moment, and so no doubt executive are asking questions, employees are asking questions, and so communicating out what you plan to do, that you have a strategy, and also, like, a lot of employees are asking questions, what they should be using it for, what they shouldn't be using it for. And sometimes there can be, in certain segments of the workforce, a bit of a resistance. So being kind of transparent around, okay, like, you might see AI elements in your experience here. Let us know how you feel about it. So it's kind of like that two-way communication, both to leadership and to the workforce.
Yeah, that's a good one. My piece of advice would be, if you're listening to this podcast and you're in any other role other than IT, I would encourage you to begin partnering with your IT team. As this technology starts to become, rapidly available at everyone's fingertips and used more and more to help your teams be more productive and do better work and all these other great like value add opportunities it presents. I think it's really important that we start to strike up a collaborative relationship with IT around the topic of AI so that we can co-author policies and procedures around where it should be used, where it shouldn't be used, understand the scenarios where it could be applied for maximum impact, and therefore how policies should be created to protect that use and help it kind of add value but mitigate risk. For example, IT are often heavily involved in your technology partnerships as well. So as your IT partners, the partners providing your software as a service kind of solutions and whatever else for your business to be successful, as they start to add in these AI features, bring your IT team into those discussions, right? This partner's delivering this kind of AI feature. So there's a really good kind of shared ownership of the new technology within the business. That would be my piece of advice. So hopefully that...
We've covered all bases there. We've gone for the communications element, we've gone for the IT element, and we've got for you using it, your personal tips as well. So got you covered there with every base.
It feels like a real natural wrap up. That's great.
The ultimate guide to AI in 2020.
And you can plug some of it. We've got some blogs that actually I found really informative for this particular one that you wrote, Ashlyn, around some of the features and translation and stuff. So this has piqued your interest. Head up to the Unily website and check out Ashlyn's work.
Yeah, plenty more to come as well in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out.
Nice. Well, look, that's it from the Unily podcast for this episode at least. Let us know what you thought down in the comments below. And just a little reminder, if you're heavily immersed in the world of digital employee experience, employee engagement, internal comms, make sure you register now for Unite 23. There is going to be some incredible sessions covering all of those topics, and of course our AI panel discussion if you're really hot on this topic specifically. And myself, Kaz and Ashlyn will all be there, so a chance to catch up in person maybe. So there we go. I'll say thank you very much to Ashlyn and Kaz for joining and doing most of the talking. Makes my life easier. Thank you very much. And we will see you on the next one. Cheers.